People often ask me what my favourite underground station is, and my answer keeps changing. Is it the moody Victorian Baker Street? The 30s warmth of Aldgate East? The Soviet magnificence of Gants Hill? I'll probably give you a different answer every time. But when it comes to my least favourite, it has to be the Bank Monument Complex. Bank is a station in the City of London that acts as an interchange between the Central, Northern, Waterloo and City, District and Circle lines plus the Docklands Light Railway. The District and Circle line platforms are classed as a separate station known as Monument. But in real terms, they are the same station. I don't know whose idea it was to give them a separate name, but that's how it is. I'm just going to say Bank in this video, for the sake of my sanity, if nothing else. Bank is also huge. You can't tell above ground because so little of it is on the surface, but it is an enormous, sprawling complex. In fact, it's so large that one of the entrances is further west than the next District and Circle line station at Cannon Street. And that just feels wrong to me. I tend to think of tube stations as a sort of dot on the map, not as enormous, splodges that overlap. But that's not the reason I hate it. You see, not only is it massive, but it's crowded, it's stuffy, it's hot, it's noisy, it's difficult to navigate, and it doesn't seem to make any sense. It's what the anthropologist Marc Augé called a non-place, or to use a recently popular term, a liminal space. It's a transitional space, or a place used to get between places. Look at me getting all fancy and philosophical-like. Now, the same could be said of any station, but Bank, being so massive, has it writ large. It's all corridors, so you can't get a feel for the space, and it's almost all underground, so you can't get a feel for the time. I tend to navigate visually, so using these corridors makes me feel uneasy. There's no obvious landmark or edge or sign of where you are. To be honest, I prefer to change somewhere else or just leave the station and walk the rest of the way. The reason Bank is so large is, as with so many of the quirks of the underground, because it was built by several different companies. I've talked about this before. But, long story short, for those of you new to the channel, at one time the different lines using this station were independent of each other, and so they built their own separate stations. It was only later that they were joined together. The Docklands Light Railway was a latecomer and got slotted in where there was space. So that's why it's so big. As for why it's so crowded, well, that's just because more people use the underground these days than they did when the tube was built. At the time of making this video, Bank is currently undergoing massive rebuilding works. New entrances are in place, the Northern Line has been rerouted to provide new, wider passageways. There will be travellators linking the Northern and Central lines, the DLR is getting new escalators, and all in all, things should be a lot less vexing. But there is another measure that can be used to deal with crowding right now. Story time. The other day I needed to get from Waterloo to Aldgate East, and I wanted to get a couple of shots on the Waterloo and City line, so I decided, reluctantly, to change at Bank. I knew it would be a drag to get from the Waterloo and City platforms to the District and Circle ones, but I was not prepared for how much of a drag it would be. It was a seemingly endless procession of corridors and escalators where I felt sure that I was doubling back on myself. I'd made this change before, and I didn't remember this route. Had the route been altered? Was I being paranoid? Well, no, actually. See this sign? Notice how the arrows light up? Well, that's because the staff actually can change the route around the station. It's all about crowd flow. Bank is a major interchange. Something in the region of 300,000 people use Bank Station every day, with the majority being around the morning and evening rush hours. This risks creating bottlenecks, where a lot of people are funneled down a single corridor. That causes delays and can of course be very dangerous in such a cramped space. Any regular commuter will be familiar with stations being closed due to overcrowding. So to avoid this, staff can actually direct commuters along alternative paths. These paths may be longer and less direct, but a crowded bottleneck would likely delay commuters even more. There are entire fields of mathematics devoted to crowd flow, and I am in no way qualified to understand them. But I assume mathematicians know what they're doing and aren't like, witches or anything. When I visited Bank, I arrived smack bang in the middle of rush hour, so I fell victim to one of these reroutings. They may be mathematically sensible and probably the best way to deal with the issue for now, but they are incredibly frustrating to deal with. But if we're going to blame anyone, we should blame the builders of the station, who conveniently aren't around to defend themselves. Well, I hope you enjoyed this circuitous tale from the tube. If you did, it would be lovely if you'd hit the like button, and even lovelier if you'd subscribe for more. I'd like, as I always do, to thank my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon for their generous contributions to this channel. You are the new passengers to my old station. And I'll see you all again very soon for another tale from the tube.